There are stories that seem straight out of fairy tales, but they are as real as the ground we walk on. Imagine a kingdom plunged into darkness, where evil runs rampant and hope seems to have vanished. Now, picture a young boy. A boy so young that he can barely tie his own shoes, yet destined to carry the weight of an entire nation on his small shoulders. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? But this is exactly how the incredible journey of Josiah begins. The youngest king and, surprisingly, one of the best that Israel has ever known. Prepare yourself for a story that will challenge everything you thought you knew about leadership, faith, and the power of one life to change the destiny of thousands. The kingdom of Judah was in dark times. Once glorious under the reigns of David and Solomon, Judah was now on the brink of spiritual and moral collapse. The kings who followed Solomon had led the people into idolatry and injustice, straying far from the ways of the Lord. In the midst of this turbulent era, a boy was born who would change Judah's history. His name was Josiah, son of Ammon and grandson of Manasseh, two of the most wicked kings to rule the southern kingdom. In 2 Kings 21 verses 19 to 20, Scripture reveals Josiah's family legacy. Ammon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, as Manasseh's father had done. Corruption and idolatry were deeply rooted in society. Foreign altars dotted the land, and the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem lay neglected and in ruins. The people had drifted so far from God that even the law of Moses, the foundation of God's covenant with Israel, was lost and forgotten. It was in this environment that young Josiah grew up. His father, Ammon, perpetuated the idolatry and social injustice of his predecessors. But Ammon's reign was short-lived and ended in chaos when he was assassinated by his own servants in a palace conspiracy. Afterward, the people of Judah executed Ammon's assassins and placed Josiah on the throne at the young age of 8. In 2 Kings 22 verse 1 we read, Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. So, a boy ruled a nation in crisis, a situation that seemed destined for failure. The challenges Josiah faced were monumental. How could a child king reverse generations of apostasy and corruption? How could he, born into a lineage of wicked kings, find the path back to God? The answers began to unfold in the early years of his reign. Though too young to govern effectively, Josiah was surrounded by faithful advisors who guided him through his childhood and adolescence. These godly men, likely including the high priest Hilkiah and the scribe Shaphan, planted seeds of faith that would grow within Josiah's heart. Although the Bible doesn't give specific details about Josiah's education, we can infer that he learned about Israel's ancient traditions and the teachings of the prophets. As Josiah grew, his curiosity about God increased. He must have heard stories of his ancestors, kings like David and Solomon, who led Israel in prosperity and devotion. Perhaps he wondered why Judah had fallen into such decay and what he could do to restore it. As Josiah approached 16 years of age, he began a spiritual journey that would transform not only his life, but the entire kingdom of Judah. 2 Chronicles 34 verse 3 records, in the 8th year of his reign, while he was still young, he began to seek the God of David his father, and in the 12th year, he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem of the high places, the Asherah poles, and the idols. This verse marks the start of a profound transformation. Josiah's quest was not only intellectual or political, but a genuine longing to know and follow God. As Josiah learned about God's covenant with Israel and the consequences of disobedience, his determination grew to bring Judah back to true worship. By the age of 20, he felt ready to begin concrete reforms. In 2 Chronicles 34 verses 4 to 5, We read that Josiah ordered the destruction of pagan altars, Asherah poles, and idols throughout Judah, purifying the land. This was a courageous move. Many people had grown up with idolatry and saw it as normal. But Josiah was determined to eliminate anything that stood against the worship of God. The purification extended beyond Jerusalem. Josiah took his reforms to the cities of Manasseh, Ephraim, Simeon, and even Naphtali, lands technically under the northern kingdom's control, but within Israel's promised boundaries. In 2 Chronicles 34 verses 6-7, it says, "He did the same in the towns of Manasseh, Ephraim, and Simeon, as far as Naphtali, and in the ruins around them." This expansion showed Josiah's commitment to restoring all of Israel's land to God. When Josiah reached 26, he undertook a monumental task: the restoration of the temple of the Lord. The temple, built by Solomon, had been neglected and profaned over the years. Restoring it symbolized Josiah's desire to repair Judah's relationship with God. During the restoration, a momentous discovery was made. The high priest Hilkiah found the book of the law, which had been lost or hidden during years of apostasy. This book likely contained portions of the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. When the book of the law was read to Josiah, his reaction was immediate and profound. In 2 Chronicles 34 verses 19-21, it says, "When the king heard the words of the law, he tore his clothes. He then commanded Hilkiah and his advisors, saying, 'Go and inquire of the Lord for me and for the people of Judah concerning the words of this book. Great is the Lord's wrath that is poured out on us, because our fathers have not kept the word of the Lord.'" Josiah's reaction showed his humility and reverence for God. He understood that Judah had drifted dangerously from God's ways and was under threat of judgment. In response to Josiah's inquiry, the prophetess Huldah delivered a message from God. She confirmed that judgment would indeed come upon Judah because of their disobedience, but brought a word of comfort for Josiah. 2 Chronicles 34 verses 26-28 states, "Because your heart was responsive and you humbled yourself before God, I have heard you. You will be buried in peace. Your eyes will not see all the disaster I am going to bring on this place." Though judgment was inevitable, God recognized Josiah's sincere heart and promised that he would not see Judah's downfall. Moved by this revelation, Josiah gathered all the people for a public reading of the book of the law. In 2 Chronicles 34 verses 30-31, it says, "Then the king went up to the temple of the Lord with all the people from the least to the greatest. He read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant, standing before his people. Josiah led them in renewing their covenant with God, pledging to obey his commandments with all their hearts and souls." This public act of renewal marked the high point of Josiah's spiritual awakening. With the covenant renewed, Josiah launched a series of reforms that transformed the religious and social life of Judah. His first action was to clear out all idolatrous items from the temple, including objects dedicated to Baal and Asherah. 2 Kings 23 verse 4 tells us, "He ordered Hilkiah the high priest to remove from the temple of the Lord all the articles made for Baal and Asherah." One of Josiah's most significant acts was the destruction of the altar at Bethel, a symbol of Israel's long-standing idolatry. In 2 Kings 23 verses 15-16, it says, "Even the altar at Bethel, the high place made by Jeroboam, he demolished." This act symbolized the reunification of Israel and Judah under the worship of the true God. Josiah also restored the celebration of the Passover, a festival commemorating Israel's deliverance from Egypt, as recorded in 2 Kings 23 verses 21-23. Josiah's reforms extended beyond religious practices. He took measures to purify all aspects of Judah's social life, eliminating practices harmful to society, such as witchcraft and sorcery. His reign was also marked by prosperity and stability, often referred to as the golden reign of Judah. Josiah's leadership brought not only spiritual renewal, but economic and social stability to the nation. However, despite Josiah's extraordinary efforts, Scripture tells us in 2 Kings 23 verses 26 to 27 that the Lord did not turn away from his fierce anger against Judah. Although Josiah's reforms were genuine, they could not entirely reverse the accumulated sins of generations. Yet, Josiah's reign left a lasting impact, providing Judah with a period of spiritual renewal and a standard of obedience to God. Josiah's life serves as a testament to the power of faithfulness. Even though his reforms couldn't prevent Judah's eventual downfall, they laid a foundation for the future. His legacy continued to inspire the people even after his death. In the end, Josiah's reign met a tragic conclusion. Caught in the geopolitical struggles of the region, he attempted to confront the Egyptian pharaoh Necho at Megiddo despite warnings. The confrontation ended with Josiah's death, marking the end of his golden reign. His death was deeply mourned, as described in 2 Chronicles 35 verses 24 to 25, with the prophet Jeremiah lamenting for him. Josiah's tragic end, however, does not diminish his legacy. His life reminds us of the impact of a leader fully devoted to God's will. Josiah's example shows that obedience to God